Epic Gaming Night is sponsored by Tasty Minstrel Games. Make sure to check out the Tasty Minstrel podcast on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. This podcast is made possible by the support of patrons like you. Thanks for your support. Welcome to the Epic Gaming Night podcast, a podcast about the stories and relationships board games create. I'm your host, Roy Caney, and with me, as always, is Rob.
Yes, I'm first this time because Matt stepped away from his chair.
Dang.
And
Boom.
Matt.
Thought I could make it back in time. Hello.
Hey, you made it back in time, and no one would have known that much, except it would have been out of order from what it normally is.
I was slid under my desk because I'm wearing socks on hardwood.
Nice. And we have a special guest today, Justin Jacobson from Restoration Games.
Special? Okay, sure, I'll take it.
No, but it's like a good kind of. It's like it's when we say it, it's with like esteem. Like it's a
not,
big deal.
It's not like the kids today when they say, "Oh, that's extra." It's not like that.
No.
I would introduce you as the board game necromancer. I'm trying to like coin that phrase for Justin of Restoration. He's the board. He brings board games back to life.
I like that. I actually like that quite a bit. So I'm going to update my resume accordingly.
Yes, that would be amazing.
All right, well, we want 3% royalties from any game that is sold
Add
that
it
is
to
going to
your
now have that on
LinkedIn.
the box or anything like
your
that, or
new-
rule book.
New job title, board game necromancer. Awesome. Well, if anybody doesn't know who you are or what you do, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into gaming.
Well, I got into gaming long before, when I was a wee lad. I've literally been gaming almost my entire life. My dad and his brother, my uncle, were gamers all through college and into adulthood too. And so my cousins and I lived about a mile away from each other. I could ride my bike over, and so we were sort of brought up with games from the get-go. All kinds of games too, role-playing games, board games, heavy stuff. I mean, we were playing, original Advanced Civilization and Rail Baron and all these big games, when we were pretty young, just because that's how we were brought up. So I've always been into games. And then my dad is a lawyer, so I became a lawyer. That's kind of how it works. It's genetic. And I would practice law for 20 years, and I was fine, but it didn't make me happy. It was a job, and I always used to stick with I was still playing games even then. And one of the things I used to do every year was go to Gen Con. And I used to do a seminar, an open Q&A, legal Q&A. People would come and ask questions about contracts or copyright or things like that. And mostly it was a way to write off the trip as a business expense. And then one year, this nice young woman came up to me after one of my seminars, and she said, "Oh, my husband's getting ready to leave Hasbro, and he's got some questions. Can we take you to dinner?" And we had a very nice dinner. And that was Lindsay Davio, Rob's wife. And that was how I met Rob. And he was getting ready to leave Hasbro. He had just released, they had done Risk Legacy and some other stuff, but he wanted to do a legacy game after he left. And so we were sort of talking about that. And then I've been doing work for him ever since, reviewing his contracts and answering questions and things like that. And so that was sort of how I kept my finger on the pulse of gaming all these years. And then I had my in the shower eureka moment, And
all right, details. What happened?
Yeah, I won't. No details about the shower, but the eureka part was this. So Kickstarter was starting to take off, right? And people were doing games because I had done, even when I was practicing law, during the D20 license. So I'm a big D&D player also. During the D20 license, 3rd edition, I had a little self-publishing house called Blue Devil Games. I went to Duke Law School, by the way. So you guys appreciate that.
I'm sorry to hear that.
You probably hate me now. I didn't even think about that. It didn't occur to me. So law school, it's not quite the hatred for the rebels as it is.
It's still bad.
Yeah, anyway, sorry.
And I'm not even a Tar Heel fan.
um, so so I had this.
Went to law school.
Duke Law School.
Yes.
What? Yeah, no. So I had this idea. So Kickstarter was starting to come about. Even then, I had been doing role-playing supplements, like little D20 supplements and stuff like that. I was full-time lawyer. At some point, I took over my dad's practice. I was running a law practice, and just busy. But I sort of made time as like a hobby, and I figured with Kickstarter it was a good way I could actually do a board game. And I had this idea that you could. I had seen someone talking about how Queen's Gambit was a Grail game for them. That Star Wars Queen's Gambit game. I was like, oh man, there's no reason you couldn't bring that back. Nobody likes it for the episode 1 part of it, right? I mean, no one's a Jar Jar Binks fan.
Are we getting an exclusive right here, now?
Let me finish the story now. Settle down. As it turns out, Rob was actually did some design work on that with Craig Van Ness, another great designer. He's got a company now called Soaring Rhino. Anyway. Mm-hmm. So they worked together on that, and I went to Rob one day. I said, "What if we brought back, Star Wars Queen's Gambit? We take out the Star Wars part of it, and we just sort of retheme it with sort of a generic sci-fi setting or something, or change it to something else." And it's that cool idea of the 3 different boards and all that stuff going on is very neat. And Rob's like, I don't really feel comfortable on it. It was mostly Craig's baby, and I did some work on it, but we started talking about these old games. And we were talking about an old game called Pathfinder, having nothing to do with the card game that you know today from Paizo.
Yeah.
And, he was talking about, I always wanted to. He wrote home rules for it, and he always thought it would be cool to do a new version of that. And so we just started thinking about games, and it wouldn't let go. I couldn't let it go. And finally, I just said, let's just try it. Let's do it. And we crunched some numbers and saw it would work, and took the leap. My wife was very supportive. I sold my law practice. We planned everything out. We made a short list of games, and that's how Restoration Games was born.
That's awesome. Nice.
Still excited though for at the end of the show when you announce Queen's Gambit redone. Very excited for that. So yes.
Yeah, whenever I played Queen's Gambit, I was like, the mission is to kill all the Gungans. I don't worry about any of the cards except for the cards with the Gungan killing side.
You're okay with Jake Lloyd?
Yeah. I mean, all the rest of the stuff can happen. It's fine. The Jedis can do it, and Queen Amidala and all of them can live, but we just need to get rid of all the Gungans. It'll be a service to everyone.
I don't know if it's a question later on, Roy, but that literally was my answer. If there was one game you wanted Restoration Games to bring back, what game would it be?
That's a good question. So, I mean, one of the reasons we wouldn't do it now is because they just came out with Star Wars Risk.
Yeah.
And I know it's a little bit of a shadow of the glory of the original one, but it's not that far off, is it? I'm not working for you, huh?
It's not the same.
The card play and stuff is a little bit similar, but the epicness of it is not necessarily.
It's definitely not as epic. That's true. I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
Well, it also doesn't come. Well, I mean, I take that back. It has a lot of plastic minis, but it's not the same, and it doesn't have 3D terrain.
Oh, I hear you. Yeah.
All that kind of stuff now, and I mean, it's cute, but that's my Grail game. If I could have any one game right now, it would be that game. And then if you guys could bring it back, oh my goodness.
What was the license that you wanted to apply to it instead, Rob?
He wanted it to be Matrix.
Oh, the Matrix, bro.
That's cool.
If you could turn Queen's Gambit into the Matrix and do all 3 trilogies right there, you know how amazing that would be. I'd give you all my money, Justin.
So let me tell you this. So first of all, 2 things. One, I'm a huge Matrix fan myself, so I would love to do a Matrix
idea as a game.
Yeah. The other thing is, so my idea actually, when we were talking about it, instead of doing a generic sci-fi, so I had this idea, and I actually even mocked up a cover of James Bond in Queen's Gambit. And so you had James Bond going into the lair, right? That's the one. And then you had the outside battle with the RAF and the minions or whatever, and then you had the other side was Q hacking in and doing some stuff. That's where and it really sort of simulated pretty well. But no, you never know, though. I mean, you never know. I can never say no.
I love the idea of a James Bond game. I just don't know if I see it as well for like a Queen's Gambit makeover. I don't know. I see the Matrix, like I could see all the different tiers. I could see like the Starship Battle and Anakin and them. That would totally be Mr. Smith and Neo fighting. Sure. You know, the one-on-one, or that would be Darth Maul. Yep. Or I mean, anyway, sorry. I know we're off topic. But bro, if you could really do that, I've been saying that
Queen's
since
Gambit
this
got us off
podcast
talking.
started. Been saying that for a long time. I would love that so much.
All right. Well, I'll follow. I know I'll sell at least one copy.
What's great too is Rob Davio was at Dice Tower Con this year again, and we had him on the show. But so many people run into Rob, and he's such a small person. I'm 6'4" and a little over 300 pounds. Rob Davio is maybe 5'6", 5'7". He's not a very tall man, and he watches he watches me eat, basically. I mean, I eat a lot. This man, he doesn't look like he eats a lot. And I go up to him, and I'm like, hey, Rob, it's good to see you again. Loved you on the show and stuff like that. He's like, hello? And I'm like, okay. Have a good day, sir. And I just like walked away. It was just one of those things, like, okay. I guess fine. I know that's not related at all, but I'm just thinking Rob Davio.
So Rob actually, he's a great guy, a very interesting fellow. He's like a gourmet level chef. I don't know if you know this. Nice. He's like a real foodie.
Well, he is too skinny. He must spend all the time cooking.
Well, I will say this. He's also diabetic. So one of the charities we support is the Joslin Center. So he, I guess he can't indulge in some of the stuff that gets me into trouble. I don't know if you're the same way as me, but he doesn't have the luxury of a sweet tooth. So
see, mine's not so much sweets. This is like pasta.
Same thing. For a diabetic, same thing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sorry. Board games are great. Let's talk about board games.
So, my next question is basically just tell us about like what it looks like for your job and what all you do running Restoration Games.
It is a literal dream come true for me precisely because of the unique sort of position of my specific job. Mm-hmm. I have a very strong artistic side. I've done a lot of creative writing in the past. I've written a novel that's never been published. I've done some artwork, and things like that. And I've always enjoyed art. I've never really pursued it beyond a hobby, but it's something I always enjoyed. So I have a very creative side, but I'm also like a super. I mean, I didn't become a lawyer by accident. I mean, I can argue all day with the best of them, and I majored in philosophy, and I have this sort of very logical side too. And board games have this incredibly unique foot in both of those worlds. There is not much else in the world that is almost equal parts art and science like a board game, and so it's just sort of like the perfect medium for me. And then by the same token, my specific job, I get to do game design, and I get to look at art direction and do all that stuff. And I also am negotiating licenses with, license holders or, designers or publishers, whatever, and freelancers and things like that. I am drafting, the legal copy for certain things, and I get to do ad copy. And I know that some of that sounds ridiculous, but the fact that do all of those different things is what makes it so. I mean, it's really just it's like a pure Oprah moment, like that story, a pure Oprah story, right? Like the guy who gives up his law firm and decides to throw it all away to open a board game publishing company. I mean, it sounds a little banana pants, but it worked.
You get to push the legal side of stuff with all the trying to acquire licenses and things like that.
Yeah, so and that's the other thing. Even on the law side of things, it's in many ways much more interesting than the type of law I used to do. So I was like a civil litigator, and I did a lot of like credit card cases. So I represented banks and credit card companies who owed people owed them money, and I would sue it. It's not very rewarding, to be honest with you.
I'm sure.
And now I get to I try and track down the designer who is now in his 70s or whatever, and then I get to talk to them. Hey, we want to bring your game in, and That one of the best parts of my job is talking to some of these older people who worked in the industry 20, 30, 40 years ago. You know, one of the first games we did was Stop Thief, and it was on our short list. And I have a private investigator that I used when I was had my law practice. We used to try and locate people to serve them, you know, with service and process. But now she would help me track down game designers who had fallen off, you know, the planet, so to speak. And so I get to track these people down and say, hey, we're this is what we do. We're this company. We bring back these old games. We're looking at, you know, this Stop Thief. And that's how I met Dr. Doyle, who's one of the most fascinating people you ever meet. Absolute genius. And shoot the breeze with them. Most of these people, they're retired mostly. They're happy to shoot the breeze with you for a good half hour or 45 minutes or whatever it is and tell you some funny war stories and things like that. So it's great. I'm not going to lie. I'm living my dream.
That's awesome, man.
That's awesome. So with bringing back all of these like old out of print games, how much do you enjoy like old school board gaming or like the good old days of tabletop games?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, like I said, I grew up playing those games, and there are lots of neat things. And that was sort of the eureka moment, right? Is that there's these old games that you just think, oh, well, I mean, you think of this, when you think of old games, you think of the ones that are the evergreens that are, you know, Monopoly and Clue and all that. They're so ubiquitous. They're such a part of our sort of daily life that you don't even think about the other games that were around that time, or even maybe the interesting things that game has in it that have become sort of trite because they've been around forever. And so there's these games that are 30, 40 years old that have things in them or parts of them that are still really cool. Like, it blows my mind. Like Stop Thief, the original from 1979, was a game of audio deduction where it came with an electronic device that would play sounds, and you'd have to piece the sounds together to deduce where a hidden movement played by the AI was. And this is 1979. It's bonkers. And there's still not been a game like that since with that element of audio deduction. And so we were looking and we're like, that's wild that there's not still that, you know, a game like that. It's, you know, you have something like Spectre Op, sure. But you have a person playing that. They're sort of announcing where they're moving, or they're showing where they're moving. And so we said, well, this is like a really neat idea. So something like, you know, Fireball Island, that 3D board with that kinetic, you know, there's just not a lot of games like that. And so, yeah, the games have a lot of other creaky parts because they're 40 years old and people didn't know anything other than roll and move back then, right? So that was sort of the idea, is we could just take that one really cool part and show that to everyone and put it in a game that has modern design sensibilities to support it.
Yeah.
Fun game, and still show these people like some of these really neat ideas.
Nice.
You know?
So do most of the games that you go after have, I mean, it seems like a decent amount have like an interesting aspect to them, or things like that. Back in the day, it's like, oh man, this is a crazy novelty, but like, how can we make that into a modern game? Is it like you're always looking for those sort of games, like with all the different games you've announced for the most part have a little bit of interesting thing with Fireball Island and Stop Thief and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, like Downforce has been a big hit for us, and I wouldn't say that is anything sort of like mind blowing in terms of mechanics, other than it just works really well. So there's always these sort of different avenues. For us, it was like so Rob had played Daytona 500 with his kids for years. That was like a game that they had played when his kids were growing up. And so he knew that one, and we knew we could talk to Wolfgang and see if we get the rights, and it turned out to be pretty easy. And the one thing there is it had a number of versions, and it had been pretty popular, and one version had been at least nominated for the Spiel des Jahres. But it had never had a really good-looking version to our estimation. Like, they were fine, but nothing really, you know, sexy. So that was like, hey, we can do a restoration that's about sort of streamlining. So we did do a little bit, like we got rid of the paper money, you know, stuff like that, which you didn't really need, things like that. But it was about making a version that was just really streamlined and then, sexy.
Nice.
But yeah, it helps. I mean, we always like to say is, what we always say is this something we're actually restoring? We don't do reprints, we do restorations. And so, is there something we can bring to the table? If we're just reprinting it, then it's not something we're likely to do. It's not what we're about. But there's plenty of games out there. If you go to our website right now, right, restorationgames.com, by the way, there's a form right on top. It says, what game would you like us to bring back and why? Which is like one of the other great parts of my job is every time somebody fills that out, I get an email. And it'll say, oh, you should bring back this game. I remember playing this with my dad, or, I remember playing this on rainy afternoons, and this part's so cool. And, or for Dark Tower, that was one of our most requested games. Oh, I still remember the sound of the creaking door opening, like something real specific, like these visceral memories we have of beloved games. And that helps us, like, oh, there's something there. Like, if people can remember a game they played 30, 40 years ago and a detail about that game, like, we know there's a hook there. It's not like, oh, I remember I played this game and it had a really excellent spinner mechanic. Like, that doesn't, nobody remembers that, right?
So would you say nostalgia plays like a big part into like the marketing or like the reason you guys want to bring back specific games? It's like, we want to bring these games back that people remember and are nostalgic about.
It's funny. I think nostalgia is actually one of our biggest problems.
Gotcha.
But you're right. If there were no the nostalgia is a symptom of the thing that is the good reason to bring it back, right?
Yeah.
There's this memory and this visceral love that they have with this game in some way, some emotional connection with it. And I think the nostalgia is a separate symptom of that, which is fine. But the problem is the nostalgia is the thing that colors the memory.
Yeah.
And we see this all the time, like people with Fireball Island. Oh, I played that so much. And people remember the tower, Fireball Island, like Volcar was like 17 feet tall, and the marbles would go like 80 miles an hour. And right. When we get the original game to start working on it and to refresh, we're like, wow, that is not that exciting. But you can see why when you're an 8-year-old and you first get it and it's brand spanking new, why it would be that way. So nostalgia is the thing that sort of makes it interesting, and we like to do the fan service for sure. I mean, there's a reason why we ask for those requests, right? But then on the other hand, when we actually decide what game we're going to do, I mean, the first comments are, you can't go to VG now. You look at Return to Dark Tower. We haven't even really announced what we're doing yet. And it was like, oh, it's not going to, they're not bringing back this the way it was. I'm out, Whereas if you actually went and played Dark Tower right now, there is you would be hard-pressed to have a good time playing a full game with that. I mean, maybe the first time, and again, that's the pure nostalgia working, but that would not be a game that would hold up under today's standards as is. But there's obviously lots and lots of really cool things happening in that game. And so what we always say is, like, find that soul of the game, find that thing, that spark, that cool moment, those memory makers, and turn those up to 11. And throw everything else out, and then just build a great.
Thank you, Spinal Tap.
Yeah, build a great game around it to support that thing, right? Like the rest of the game, we can make it so that it supports the thing that everyone loves.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I've heard you guys say before that you try to like take games and make them as exciting as people remember them as, even though in reality they aren't what they remember them as. It's like, oh, if they go back and play it now, it's not as awesome as they thought it was, but you guys try to make it to where it's like a modern design on that old game.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things, that is one of our catchphrases, right? Is we have to make the game more exciting than people remember, not than it actually was.
Yeah.
One of our listeners in chat said you could call it Dark Cell Phone Tower.
Right. Well, let me clarify, right? So I know people want to talk about Dark Tower. That's fine. I'm happy to talk about Dark Tower. I'm ecstatic to talk about Dark Tower. Mm-hmm. The tower will not be a holder for a device. Let me be perfectly clear about that.
Ooh.
Okay.
So there's stuff that I can't talk about, not the least of which because it's way too early, but we just haven't finalized anything. I can't say we're going to put something in. We're, well, not even close to that stage yet. But we're working on it, and with people with whom I can't yet mention, to sort of develop the coolest device that we can build. So this will be a self-contained electronic mechanical device, just like the original, but keeping in mind that we've gotten a lot better on mechanics and electronics in the last 30 years. So you can use your imagination for the kinds of, and everything's on the table. We started a list of all right, just brainstorm every wild thing you can think of to throw in this tower, right? Can the board move? Can the board sense where the pieces are? Can light shine? Can, react to certain things? Audio, there's all kinds of things you can do now. You just don't need to look any further than if you have an Alexa or one of these things, right? I mean, there's stuff that can live in an electronic device like that. So the other thing we are planning on doing, though, is it will have it will be app enabled or app supported. I know that disappoints some people.
Bingo.
But, well, I mean, I get it, and that's fine. And we're not doing that for every game. Fireball Island we have an app that will, play some funny sounds and stuff, but you certainly don't need an app to play Fireball Island.
Yeah.
It's not every game we do you need an app for, but this one, it seems just uniquely appropriate, right? I mean, the whole thing about the original Dark Tower is not the gameplay hey, I got 3 more warriors, or I mean, you know how the combat works. The combat works is basically you're fighting brigands. There was only one enemy in the game because it had only a certain number of cells that it could show on the slides on the tower, a certain amount of space. And it would say hey, it's 38 brigands and you have 20 warriors, and it would be beep bong, beep bong, beep beep, depending on who. So each big series of rounds, and either you would lose 1 warrior or they would lose half their brigands, and you would watch the numbers go up and down and ping pong, or go down and ping pong down, and it's just not very exciting combat by any stretch, not cinematic at all. And so the cool thing was, though, is that this tower DM'd your board game for you, and that was just mind blowing back then.
Yeah.
So we need to do that today. We need to capture that moment of I cannot believe a board game is doing the stuff that this game is doing. And so, yes, we will have a mechanical electronic device in the tower that lives there and does all kinds of really cool stuff on the board and interact with the players. But this app, if we have an app enabled, that also lets us do things that are exciting. And you've probably seen some of the stuff like Detective that just came out, or, even something, I don't know, some other stuff. But basically, we can update content. If we're talking about things like quests, you're going to go on quests to get resources to help you fight the tower.
Yeah.
We can, instead of having a deck of hey, here's 28 quests, so you played through them, well, try to be excited the next time you see the same one, right? Well, we can now have we can add content, we can add quests, and we can make the quests dynamic. How many players are in the game? Did this player get this particular item or this particular companion? Oh, this player got this, wizard companion. Well, guess what? Now we can see the wizard-related quest.
Yeah.
Can't really do in an analog setting. And so again, the whole purpose of Return to Dark Tower is to capture that moment of we are playing against this game, and now because technology is so much better, the opponent is that much better. And I don't know, I'm excited about the whole dynamic of it. It's very cool.
That's awesome. I love the idea that the fact that these apps are being integrated into games, they make it so that publishers can add things onto games or tweak certain things within the app. I know the new edition of X-Wing, they have all the numbers and stuff in the app now, so they have things what they can tweak now from the game and basically do patch notes or updates. And all these games that use applications like Mansions of Madness, we can just push out another scenario just cause, you know. It's really cool to see.
Mansions of Madness was the other one I was thinking of. That's a great example, yeah.
It's cool to see these with app integration into a board game. Yeah, it makes it where there's a little bit of a video game feel, but it allows the publisher a lot of leeway to create more content for its consumers,
Well, so the other cool thing is I mean, it's one thing if just the app is sort of living side by side with the game, but to actually integrate it. So we can not just have an app that's sort of doing its own thing. The app can talk to the tower, right?
Nice.
And interact with the app in some way, and that can make something happen on the tower. Or, some of the stuff we're looking at, you have something like Drop Mix, right? Where you have the cards or miniatures can have these chips in them and things like that. And so the phone can live in essentially an RFID reader or whatever. And then you could play a card and say, oh, I'm going to play this card, and you touch it to the thing, and the app knows what it is, and now the tower says something to you. This is just an example of the types of things we're looking at. The app is your advisor, and it tells you something, and you put your wizard down, your wizard companion down, and say, I'm using my wizard, and then the tower says, foul magic be gone, or I don't know, I'm just making stuff up.
So are we talking about Bluetooth enabled board games?
I specific technology I couldn't tell you yet. We're way too early. But as I said before, anything's on the table. Whatever creates the most experience.
You got to pair your phone with your board games, guys.
Now, Rob doesn't like it when I say this because, I'm not a huge Michael Bay fan or anything, but I said it'd be like a Michael Bay board game, just over the top, effects.
Like real pyrotechnics and explosions? Holy smokes.
Probably not real explosions.
Okay, but that would be
someone said lasers in the chat. We could have.
Yeah,
that's possible.
There's been lasers in board games before. I'm pretty sure you guys can pull that off.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I'm definitely excited to learn more, and the fact that I heard that it's supposed to be super story driven.
Yeah, so we're certainly trying to. The original is not super story driven by any stretch. So it's not it's not a legacy game, first of all. That we get that question about. It doesn't matter what we do. When we put a Dinosaur Tea Party, if Rob's name is anywhere near it, is it a legacy game? No, it is not a legacy game. And it's a bit more of a strategy game. It's not it's not a dungeon crawl. Certainly it's more of a bird's eye view of things. But like I said, trying to bring more narrative to it and more flavor is definitely something we're working on. We were talking about that today. Just had the team together today. We were sort of playing through some rounds and seeing how we can work on magnifying that kind of stuff. So I should mention, by the way, I'm assuming people know, but maybe if some people are listening, they don't. We were co-designing this with Isaac Childress, who designed Gloomhaven, of course. We're super psyched about that. He is a genius by every measure of the word. And it's been great working with him, and it's really neat. In particular, JR is also Honeycutt is our tinker in chief. He and I are sort of pitching in a little bit. It's great to sort of watch the two of them work and get to sit back. Oh, okay, yeah, that's neat. It's kind of fun to be a fly on the wall sometimes with the two of them. So
yeah, definitely sounds awesome. Is it going to be going to Kickstarter, or is this going to be straight to shelves, or what does it look like currently?
So, yeah, the plan is to do a Kickstarter. Firebottom was a huge success for us.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I'm not just talking about the money. That was great by all means. And to be perfectly candid, that was sort of the last element of the proof of concept of the whole idea of restoration games, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We announced, got a good response, people were into it. Okay, good. We released our first few games. Hey, they're selling pretty well. People are into it. Good reviews. Good. Doing a Kickstarter that has that kind of response, again, not just the money, but the number of backers and the publicity and all that stuff, sort of this concept is actually a good concept, right? It actually works. So that was nice. And main thing was it helped us build a really amazing community. To get that many backers who are so excited about this project really sort of let us know, it's just exciting. And so, yeah, to sort of recapture that magic a little bit, a game like Dark Tower is something we feel like we can maybe get, in the same neighborhood at least. We'll see. But, yeah, and then also gives us some flexibility on types of things we can do as far as add-ons and things like that we maybe won't be able to do if we went straight to retail. But it will be in retail distribution also. So we're looking to actually release it in 2020. Kickstarter hopefully next year. That's the plan, and that's what we're working towards. So
I heard that Rob Davio liked being the #1 game with Pandemic Legacy, and then Isaac stole that on Board Game Geek, so he decided he needed to make a game with Isaac to try to steal that back. So Dark Tower #1 for Board Game Geek. That's what we're hearing right now. No, I was kidding.
That is the goal. Both of them would be thrilled.
Good times, good times. Awesome. Well, Dark Tower is definitely super exciting. If people don't know a whole lot about Restoration Games, can you tell us just a quick overview of the other games you guys have?
Sure. So our first 3 games we released at Gen Con last year is Downforce. Like I said, it's been doing really well for us. We're on our 2nd printing. It is a racing...
And a new expansion now, right?
Yeah. We just came out with a new expansion last month called Danger Circuit. And what's cool about it is, so this is why I said, like, Rob's like, he's a genius. I'm not going to mince words. He said, because he, and in a particular kind of way, like, he has this amazing capacity to sort of boil down the goal of the design in like a phrase or like a little sentence or something. So like for Fireball Island, it was like kinetic death machine. This needs to be a kinetic death machine. Like that was our mantra as we were working through it. But for Downforce, he said the problem with racing games is they take the world's fastest sport and make it into the world's slowest board game. Like all the racing games were like 1 hour long and like 17 sub steps and all this stuff, right? And so his whole thing was we need to get it faster. We need to get it faster, get it streamlined, get it get to the action more quickly. So one of the important parts of the game is this auction. And like, how can we get this auction as streamlined as possible so that people can start racing as quickly as possible? And he found a way to do it. And so there's auction and racing and betting and player powers, and it all plays in like 30 minutes. It plays 2 to 6 players and is pretty good at every player count. And, probably one of the better games out there for 6 players in terms of time and play experience and things like that. So, and then so we just did a Danger Circuit expansion, which has first thing everyone said was, "Oh, we love it, but we want more tracks and more powers." So
nice.
The original game comes with 6 powers. And believe it or not, they're actually really hard to write powers for that work, they don't need to be perfectly balanced because they're auction, but they need to at least be in the ballpark.
Yeah.
And so we managed to come up with 6 more, so we got 6 more powers, so that everyone should be good for powers for a while. And then Stop Thief was our other one. That was from 1979, original game Stop Thief. We did Kickstarter for that a year and change ago.
Which I did the preview for forever ago.
That's right. Completely forgot about that. Yes, you were.
We played it before the app was ready.
That's right.
Yeah, we did it. We played, and I made that preview when there was no application, and I was reading off of a script, making them play the game. I was like, you hear footsteps, you hear glass break. Yeah, it was fun.
I totally forgot about that. That was an absolute lifesaver for us. But that's cool because that was our first real app-driven. It was real app-driven game. We have our own Restoration Games app that has a module for Downforce where you can use it for scoring instead of the score sheet. But the cool thing with Stop Thief is, so this is where I had to do all this app development, which we're still working on, by the way. So to be clear, this is another question I get a lot, understandably so. Because the Kickstarter did very well, we actually had these other play modes that we promised as stretch goals. So we have cooperative mode out, which is great. Frankly, it probably should have been a cooperative game from there originally. Like, they just didn't do cooperative games back then.
Yeah.
And it's my particular favorite way to play. I think a lot of people have found that too. So we're looking to support that some more down the road, maybe. But then we also have these other play modes we need to get out. Solo mode, which is easy. It's basically 1-player co-op, not that hard. But then 1 versus all, where one person gets to play the thief, but they use the app to control their movement. So we have all these modes designed, and we're in the process of laying them out. We're trying to get a UI or UX, I forget. I don't deal with the app because I don't like to deal with the app, but the app team is working on this as we speak, so hopefully those will roll out soon. And then our other original game was Indulgence, which is a trick-taking game based off of an old game called Dragon Master. So the cool thing about this is if you like trick-taking games, it's obviously sort of a niche. I love trick-taking games myself. I think, I sort of grew up on hearts and spades and stuff, and Dragon Master for that matter. And the cool thing is it has contracts that change every round. And then it also lets you shoot the moon every round. If you know what hearts is, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it comes with a ring. So that part was cool. That was my idea.
You got to have the extra bling in the board games.
We actually had 3D designed like a token, like a miniature to use for it. I was like, let's just get a ring. Let's put a ring in there. And we said, oh, there's no way that'll work, right? Like they can't get a decent ring that'll be able to. But they found one. It's a pretty nice ring. And then, so our most recent game that came out is Dinosaur Tea Party, which street date has not hit just yet. It's like any day now. I'd say September 8th. Yeah, I think it's September 8th. It is available online at Barnes & Noble early. They got a little early taste of it. So you can get it at Barnes & Noble online. Should be in Barnes & Noble store soon, and then obviously it'll be around at your local game stores and all that. And that's based off a 1976 game called Who's It, which is basically like a little multiplayer Guess Who. And so it's funny. It was a good story. When I got the game, we were looking at the game. It was like, it's kind of neat. So the other cool thing about it has these quirks. So in a regular game of Guess Who, like, are you wearing glasses? Yes, I'm wearing glasses, right? So the cool thing about Who's It is that some of the roles had these quirks where they had to answer not based on their actual traits, but based on their quirk. So there was, in the original game, there was like the spy, I think, or whatever, who always lied. So if you asked them something and they were, are you wearing glasses? If they were wearing glasses, they would say no instead of yes. And so we thought that was kind of a neat idea. Again, I haven't seen any these types of deduction games that use that sort of mechanic, so we decided to bring it back. So I got the game and I played it with my kids. And I said, just so you know, the game's a little bit racist. It's from 1976, so and we were playing like, well, it's not really racist, Dad. It says, are you black? Is like one of the questions. Like you get card questions. You don't get to ask open questions. Like, are you Oriental? Which obviously is a dated term.
Yeah.
And I said, well, it's not so much that you're asking, I think it was maybe, are you African American? But anyway, it's that the Asian people were the spy, the waiter, and the geisha, right? And like the genius is the white guy. And, it's the role distribution was a little awkward.
Yeah.
So, trying to figure out, well, how can we redo this game? We were trying to figure out how we can slice and dice. And it doesn't matter how you do it. Like if you take a group of humans and slice them up into their composite traits, you're getting yourself into trouble.
Uh-huh.
And Rob said, I've got this idea I've been sort of sitting on. Like he had this idea one day, and he just sort of scribbled it down. And like it's literally just the title was Dinosaur Tea Party. And he said, what if we just use that for this? And I'm like, oh, that's amazing. So we tried it out. We got some reference art, just for like scope spec work, and it just really fit. So it's a lot of fun, and it's funny. So it's a bit lighter than our other games. It's definitely a great family weight game, playing with kids and stuff like that, and just or drunk either way, kids or not drunk kids, but. Either you're drunk or you have kids at the same time. And you just put on your worst British accent, and it's quick. It's like a 20-minute game, $20. Great art, amazing artist, Matejos Galasabrasi. I always get the last name not quite right. Excellent artist, amazing artist. I don't know, it's a fun little light game, and so. It also is the only game in the world that comes with Rob Davio's recipe for oatmeal shortbread.
That's awesome.
There you go.
Now I'm going to have to play it again.
Come for the oatmeal shortbread. Stay for the board game.
So that's worth the entry price alone.
There you go.
That's awesome. And then, of course, Fireball Island, which was huge.
Yeah,
it was okay. Traveled the U.S.
Yeah, that was something. So Fireball Island obviously was a great success. That will be coming out in November, and yes, the first thing I should have mentioned it at the top. We're still on schedule. Everybody who asked me season, are we still on schedule for Fireball? Yes, we're still on schedule. So it should be out in retail in November, in time for Black Friday. In retail, it's going to be the base game and the Last Adventure expansion, which adds 5th player, snakes, boulder, and then some other souvenirs and things like that. Some other and player powers. That will be available on Black Friday. And we have 2 more expansions. We have a Wreck of the Crimson Cutlass. It's coming out in January. That's the separate pirate ship. That's a whole separate place to explore. With cannonballs and cursed sapphires and all kinds of stuff. It adds a lot to take that to the game if you like, which for this game is a lot of fun. So if you want to ramp up to take that, that is a good expansion to get. And then we have Crouching Tiger, Hidden Bees coming out in February. That's a smaller expansion. Just adds a couple of dexterity shots to the game, or adds a Crouching Tiger and then the bees. So.
That's awesome.
That's what it says on the label. Yeah, so and then backers obviously should get theirs all at once in time for Thanksgiving, hopefully. Most of them should. I mean, it's such a huge project. I'm dealing with the logistics right now, and it's like an order of magnitude bigger than anything we've had to deal with before.
Yeah.
Because of the huge number of games that we ordered, we got a huge demand on the distribution side, so our orders, even bigger. And then on top of that, we've got 9 different SKUs we're dealing with, because it's not just the base game and the 3 expansions, but with all the stretch goals we were hitting, we got card sleeves coming and deluxe marble sets and treasure trove packs and painted minis and all kinds of stuff.
That's awesome.
And they're going, 4 different hubs around the world. And so it's, hopefully we can pull it off. We're still in there, and it looks like it's still on track. So.
Are you excited about seeing the response of everybody getting their copies in here in a couple months?
I'm super excited. I'm really excited. I've talked about, the best part of my job is this. The best part of my job is this. The best part of my job, by far, on top of all the great things I've already mentioned, one of the other great things about being in board games, as opposed to suing people for credit card debt, is people thanking you for making the game and telling you stories about how they played with their kids, or Downforce now is having this little moment here where people are getting Mario Kart cars and putting them in their
I saw a lot of that on your Twitter feed.
I'm like, oh man, that's so awesome. It's so great to see people taking this thing that you work so hard on and then just playing with it and having fun and being creative with it. And it's making memories for people. It's so great. I can't wait for people to get their hands on this. I can't wait I know I'm going to hear stories. I already heard some stories in advance of why people were backing. Were like, I played this as a kid, and now I've got, an 8-year-old that I want to play this with, and seeing the pictures on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and everything. It's great.
Nice.
So I should mention also, by the way, so we're going to be at PAX Unplugged in Philadelphia.
Hey.
Just right after Thanksgiving, and that will be. So it'll be in retail, but we will be at PAX Unplugged. We will have. A bunch of Fireball Island stuff there going on. We have a nice big booth. They've got a lot more space to play around with than Gen Con. So we had a very nice little 10x10 booth at Gen Con, it's always a fun time. But we have a much bigger booth at PAX Unplugged. So we have a whole bunch of games there and stuff we're looking to do, for the launch and stuff. So it'll be fun. If you're going to be there, we'll also have some of the extras that were available in the Kickstarter. If you want to get some stuff that maybe you missed the Kickstarter, or if you know someone who's going, or if you're going to be going, you can probably pick up that stuff while supplies last there.
So if you want to buy the board game, directly from the board game necromancer himself, make sure to hit him up at PAX Unplugged.
That's right. You can have it signed by the necromancer and our chief restoration officer and our tinker-in-chief.
Nice. So were there any specific unique challenges with Fireball Island? I know there's this whole molding process you guys had to go through, and I'm sure a lot of that stuff was just crazy and intense with the amount of plastic that's in that game.
It is. It's funny. I used to joke about, how come no one's brought Fireball Island back? Well, now I know why no one has brought Fireball Island back. it was unbelievable challenge, and just so many ways that you don't really know until you're in it. Even something like Dark Tower is incredibly challenging in its own way, but it's just such a totally different thing. It's because it's not. There's plenty of games that have like 3D components to them, but you're either building them or they're sculpts. Like just like miniatures and things like Volcar is a sculpt. That's fine, but most of those are purely aesthetic. And the board in this game is a 3D board, which is not sculpted. It's vacuum formed. So it's an entirely different process. And we started off by like saying, oh, okay, well, we'll just do a 2D board and we'll sort of simulate the marbles. Well, it doesn't work. You can't do it that way.
Yeah, yeah.
And so literally what it can. So the original board design was Noah from Game Trace, who did some of the initial layout with JR. They both sort of did the initial layout, and that sort of got us started. And then the whole last part of that was we were fortunate to find essentially a toy design company, Design Interactive. I always get the name mixed up. Design Interactive, I'm pretty sure. Design Innovation. That happens to be like a half an hour from Rob's house.
Oh, nice.
And so they actually put a conference room, and they have this big island made out of clay that based off of that design. And Rob would go down there 3 times a week and spend a couple hours, and they would just roll a marble, move the clay, roll a marble, move the clay, and that's the only way to do it. I mean, you could spend years doing it, like in the 3D simulator. It's just not going to come out right. So we had to do all this, Rob did all this design work on the clay thing, and then you're done. You have this big clay thing, and they have to it's such a big piece, they had to deliver it to a special place that could do a laser scan of this big 3-dimensional island. You can't it's because it's bigger than sort of a regular old, maker kit type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And then, okay, fine. Now you've got a 3D island. Now you've got to send that off to the manufacturer, Longshore manufacturing partner. They're great. They've been super great to work with on this because they would make a prototype island and ship it to us, and we'll be like, okay, here are the 17 things. Here's our punch list of like, this one's a millimeter off, this one's hopping too much, or whatever. There's too much vibration here, or whatever it is. And so it's just iteration after iteration after iteration after iteration, nonstop. Very challenging process, but that's what makes it different. That's what makes it exciting. Like, that's why it's not like any other board game out there. And then on top of all that, right, we've got to come up with a cool game. We got all these other cool innovations in it. Like I talked about Volcar. I talked about how Rob sort of boils down the game, right? So in addition to the kinetic death machine, he said, so the first time he played the original game, he sort of came away saying, the problem is that in the original game, you would roll the die and move that number of spaces, and there's really only one path. You really don't have many choices about where you're going. So you don't have any. It's completely uncertain at the start of your turn what you're going to do. You can't plan. And on the other hand, when you roll the 6, you can do the fireball or whatever. You can turn Volcar any direction you want. You can put the marble. You know exactly where the marble is going to go, and ahead of time, 99% of the time, it's going to hit this person, right?
Yeah.
You need to flip that exactly around, right? You need to have control over your person. You need to be able to plan, like, what is my strategy, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to try and go over here and get this. And then the chaos and the uncertainty needs to be in Volcar. Like, that's the roulette moment. When you drop those marbles in, you're like, ooh, I hope it goes with. So how could we do that? And I don't remember who came up with the idea, but we had this sort of 3-channeled mouth for Volcar where the marble can come out of one of 3 directions. So you might be, and we've sort of weighted it towards the middle. So it mostly comes down the middle, but not always. And it's that uncertainty that creates that exciting moment. The other really cool thing about the game, because just the nature of the process, the manufacturing process, is literally everybody's game is unique on some microscopic level.
Yeah.
That sounds ridiculous, but we didn't even occur to us till we got a couple more prototypes in, like as we were iterating. we'd get one to be like, it behaves slightly differently on like one path or something. Oh, that's cool. That one's Marvel's doing something different than we've seen before. And it reminded me of that scene in Jurassic Park where he's got the water, you know, Jeff Goldblum's character, he's got the water on the hand, and he's, you know, it's like the butterfly effect, right? Like it goes down one side one time and then the other side the other time. So it's the same thing. You've got these sort of microscopic things that everybody's board is going to be unique, and I'm excited to see that too in practice. And so it was a huge hour. I mean, in a lot of ways, it was the whole team. There were six of us working nonstop for months and months and months, just on this one game. So kind of nuked the other plans we were working on. We're playing catch up now. We're hustling right now.
Well, I'm glad to see like all the tons of amount of work you guys did and like reshaping and making all this stuff, because you had to have all that stuff ready before you guys even launched on Kickstarter. So it's awesome to see all that hard work that you guys did ended up paying off when the backers saw the hard work you had put in and been like, oh man, let's make this happen. So,
yeah, for sure. Very rewarding. No doubt.
Awesome. Well, what are some of the most requested games you guys get? Because I know you guys have that form on your website.
Yeah.
What's up there? Not necessarily spoiling anything, just random games.
Sure. No, I'm always happy to tell what's requested. I mean, we don't just go down the list. Like we have our
for sure.
Stuff. We don't just go down the list. So Fireball Island was number one for a long time. I'm pretty sure like Tom kind of stuffed the ballot box. Tom Bassel stuffed the ballot box on that one a little bit. So that one's off the list now, which is good. And then Dark Tower was one of our other big ones. So the other ones that are still on the list, sort of working our way down. The other granddaddy that's definitely like a clear number one right now is Hero Quest. We get that one a lot. Almost certainly never going to happen. It's just a absolute morass of legal. It's like the Mirkwood of legal rights.
Yeah. And that's one that you guys wouldn't necessarily, people wouldn't really want you to change. They just want you to reprint or keep making more. You know?
They say that about everything.
Yeah.
But, you know, I keep working on it, so it's fun. I always have lots of irons in the fire, so to speak. And, you know, I get some feelers out there. You never know. Omega Virus is definitely sort of towards the top end. Thunder Road is another one we get quite a bit of.
Thunder Road would be awesome to see remade. You know.
Yeah. Epic Duels, Heroescape. That's never going to happen. That one I can tell you right now is never going to happen.
Why not?
There's
too many licenses.
There's two problems. There's a patent on the terrain, and I don't know when that runs out, but it's not this year. And then, I mean, frankly, the reason why they stopped making it is the terrain is just super expensive. It was like back when plastic was cheap, before the going up. So. For the next three sort of biggies, and we get lots of other like 1313 Dead End or 13 Dead End Drive, and I know you Crystal played this year. What was it, Atmosphere or Nightmare? That's often requested.
Dude, I would love to see like a VCR game from Restoration Games. Just get the Brothers Mirth to dress up in a whole bunch of different costumes. It'd be great.
I will tell you right now that I have actually looked at some of these. So, you know.
That's awesome.
A modern VCR style game.
What's that?
A modern VCR style game would be amazing with the cutscenes and everything.
Yeah, I hear you. What was another one I was just thinking of? Key to the Kingdom, that's another one we get a lot of. I don't know. I could look on the list. It's funny. The cool thing is, like, seeing ones that get a lot of. I'll say this: we tried to get Dune, but we couldn't.
That would have been amazing.
Then they obviously. What was it? IDW got it? No, Gale Force 9 got the
So
Dune.
did they actually get the game, or did they just get the IP? I'm not quite clear on that.
They got the IP as far as I know, and this was sort of one of the hangups with us is there was, issue with the game itself, which obviously Fantasy Flight
had
backs from, and so that's still there. So couldn't make it work, but
I do find it interesting that they got the intellectual property for it, and Fantasy Flight couldn't snag that back in the day. So I'm like, how hard did they try?
I think it's all related to the new movie, which I'm excited to see. So
Yeah, for sure.
I'm happy as a Dune fan. I'm happy in general. You know.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So the cool thing is, so we literally have hundreds of names on this list. So it's cool to see the ones that get lots of votes, but it's also cool to see the one-offs. Someone will mention something. I was like, "What is this game? I've never even heard of this." Like someone requested a game like a little while back that was like a promotional game made by some chain of like service stations in the Pacific Northwest in the 80s.
That's awesome.
I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And we can't do this game. Doesn't make any sense. But I don't know. So it's fun seeing the different games. So.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, there's a question we like to ask a lot of our first-time guests on the show, and that is, what is your personal all-time favorite tabletop game?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask me this. This is very tough for me.
Everybody says that. Everybody.
First of all, you've heard of Omni Gamers. That's me. I love every game. I love all kinds of games.
Yeah.
There's no kind of game that I will not play. I just played. I was up visiting my cousin. He's a heavy gamer. I was just playing what were we playing? PAX Renaissance. I don't know. Played some Mythic Battles. We played some all kinds of stuff. Right? I'll play anything. So in that sense, it's hard. I don't have any obvious ones. I will say this. So this is sort of how I answer this question. My favorite gaming experience that I've ever had was in the middle of, let's just say, Pandemic Legacy Season 1. If you've played it, you know what I am referring to.
Yeah.
So funny story there is this was back when I had my law practice. And I actually said, I wanted to play with the same group all the way through. And I said, look, anyone who wants to play with me, you can play. We'll play during lunch once a week, and you don't have to clock out.
Nice.
So, we did that, and
paying people to play Pandemic Legacy with you. That's awesome.
So it worked. We got through. We played every single week. We got through the whole game. And when that moment happened, it was my character that it happened to, and I just shouted. I was like, "What?" I couldn't believe it. One of my paralegals comes running down from the office. "What's wrong, Mr. Jacobson? What's wrong?" So that was a great moment. I will say I'm a huge D&D fan, like I said. But it's interesting because my game group we're all like older professionals. Most of us have kids, and it's very hard. I'm not the first person to say it's hard to schedule game night, but D&D also particularly hard because the prep work and so what's cool is that we sort of bifurcated our D&D thing. So we're playing like just the role-playing side via email. And I'll tell you about my character if you want me to.
That would be awesome. Do it, for real.
But we also like the tactical combat side. We're playing Gloomhaven, so we just do some role playing on this world we're building, and we haven't actually gotten to the table yet. It's all just via email. And then we're playing Gloomhaven. We got over 100 hours into Gloomhaven because we're enjoying the tactical combat part of that. But I would say, so my number one ranked game on BGG, it has been for a while, is Robinson Crusoe.
Oh, nice.
It's a great, sort of meaty game. It has some really cool mechanics that I like. It has some story elements to it. I like that echo card system where something happens and it gets shuffled in and then the effects happen later. I love it. And most importantly for me is, because I play a lot of solo games, this is a great solo game.
That's awesome.
So for me, if I had to pick one game, I would probably pick that. That's why it's ranked number one. But I do like all those other things too.
Nice. Awesome, man. Well, is there anything else you'd like to talk about or promote before we start to wrap this thing up?
Well, I'll tease a promotion. How about that?
Awesome.
Okay.
So, if you're astute, you might have noticed that we have not announced a single game for next year yet. And that is because we actually have a game for next year. We actually have several games. We're going to be partnering with another company to bring out a pretty exciting title which we are not ready to announce yet. But we literally just
That's
worked
not a
out.
tease. That's mean. No, a tease is something more than, hey guys, we're working with another company for a great game. I mean, come on. You got to give us something.
I can't.
All right. Well, can you tell us at least what type of game or something? Nobody listens to our show. You're gonna be fine.
Rob says that every single time.
Here's the thing. It's very important. I need to explain this to you. Okay. I am the biggest blabbermouth on the planet, and I'm serious. If you get me at a convention, I mean, I'm 99% likely to just tell you the whole deal. If you bring fudge, it's a full 100%.
Well, listen, I've got an announcement, guys. There's something going on later with somebody else.
Rob. Rob.
Oh, man.
Come on, Justin.
Chat saying, do it, no one listens. Which is kind of ironic, seeing that chat saying, do it, no one listens.
Literally disown me.
Can you at least tell us, like, is it Euro-based? Is it area control-based? Is it a new game? Or is it a restoration game?
It is a restoration. That's all we do. It's a restoration of a game before 2000. I'll go that far. I will say this. So I will tell you this.
Is it something you've already mentioned tonight?
I don't remember.
So yes. Okay.
Possibly. I mentioned a lot of games. It's certainly possible. Here's the thing. It's not just one game. It's sort of a few, at least maybe a couple, maybe a few games. And like I said, we're partnering with this other company. And so, when we announce...
Can you tell us, like, is it medieval? Is it science fiction?
I can't.
Is it... Yes, you can.
Let him talk, Rob. I was trying to figure it out.
You can. All right. I mean, come on, Justin. I mean, what you did was just so mean. Hey, guys, we're doing something with another company, and that's it. I mean...
well, obviously, you're doing something with some people.
Let me say this.
Come on, Justin. I will send you fudge. I'll put fudge on the fudge.
Let me say this. How can I do this without having Rob kill me?
There are so many different types of genres, genres. You'll be fine. Just hold my hand. We're going on a date. I don't want to say a commitment. I don't need to wear your Letterman jacket. Just hold my hand in public for 2 seconds. That's all I'm asking.
I can't do it.
Oh, so you're embarrassed of me, and you won't bring me to your parents' house. That's how it is.
I'm worried that my big brother Rob will beat me up.
Listen, I look like I've eaten Rob Davio. I met the man. I'll protect you.
He's scrappy. He'll take you out, man.
All I got to do is lay on him. And he's done.
This podcast has gone to a weird space.
You can't give us nothing other than another company in multiple games? Justin.
I can't do it.
That's not even a side hug. Can I just get a side hug? Just something.
I can't.
He's like, I never should have mentioned it. Dun, dun, dun.
I don't even know when we're announcing this.
Cool. Well, hey.
Again, nobody listens to the show, bro. You'll be fine. You can even say the name, and then the 4 people in chat will say, that's so great. And their 7 followers on Facebook will make no difference in the world.
It will live on in posterity, and I will be, like I said, I will be thoroughly excommunicated. Listen, Rob, I appreciate the effort.
I would say, hey, make sure you message us when it is announced, so that way we can know. I'd be like, hey, remember that time that Rob harassed Justin on the podcast?
I will say this. Let me say this.
No, I can't say it. Never mind.
I can say it.
Come on, Justin.
Roy, I think this
It's like you took me out for a date, and I go in a kiss, and you just told me you had herpes. You can't do that, Justin. I need to know, man. Tell me what's going on. Tell me something.
I'm going to say this. I think Roy, in particular, will love this game.
Nice.
Twilight Imperium 5th Edition.
That means it's probably not of the Euro variety, is what I'm guessing.
I can say that. Yeah, it's definitely not.
Okay, see, that's somewhere. That's somewhere.
Yeah, no, it's not a Euro. It's not a card game. It's like a nice, meaty game.
Thematic.
I can say that, sure. But and like I said, it'll be a few. So it'll be a few SKUs, as we say in the business.
That's awesome, man. Do you have any clue like around what time you will be able to announce it? Because you said it's actually coming out this year, or
no, not this year. So this is our Gen Con release for next year. This is our Gen Con release for next year, and like I said,
next year.
Is it going to Kickstarter, or is it just going to go out straight to retail?
Straight to retail.
Oh man, I think chat's got it. Is it Hungry Hippos?
I'm pretty sure that's still out.
Are there sequels to Hungry Hippos?
We just added Firepower.
There we go.
Purple Hippo.
What if you do like musical chairs, and then wherever you sit, that's your person, but one of the hippos doesn't work, and so that's where it's like a trader mechanic. So like you're doing Hungry Hippos with musical chairs, and then are you the one that just can't get any? Okay.
Depending on when you get like the special marble, you get like extra like bonuses or something. You get extra like star power hits or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Totally Hungry Hippos.
It's not Hungry Hippos. That's what
no.
It could be a lot of things.
It
could be a trader mechanic.
Hungry Hippos is a straight up Euro game, so it's definitely not that.
Yeah. Man.
Awesome, man. Well, definitely super. Keep an eye on Restoration Games.
I would tell you this. I'm so convinced. Hold on a second. I'm so convinced that you will love this game, Roy, that I am promising you now you will be, and especially also for your help on Stop Thief, you will get a copy before other folks, so we can get you to. You'll get a review copy before other folks do.
Nice. Sure. I'm sure Rob will love that. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, always the bridesmaid, but you know what? I'm fine with that because I still get invited to the wedding and I still get cake.
That's
you
right.
still get to come over and play.
And you don't have to pay for the wedding.
And I don't have to pay for the wedding, but I have a closet full of 27 dresses. So that's
oh man,
that is
terrible
a
movie.
Cut right there, Rob.
What?
That's a deep cut right there. That's
Bro, you have no idea. You don't know, Justin.
So one of your guilty pleasures?
Oh, the dresses? No, I proudly wear the dresses.
27 dresses. Is that Gwyneth Paltrow?
27 dresses? No, that was Katherine Heigl or.
Oh yes, Katherine Heigl.
Yeah.
Actually, I knew it was Katherine Heigl. I was just testing you.
Bro, I'm in a house full of women.
Me too.
Yeah. So I lose. But right now, because my girls are young, we literally watch The Greatest Showman every day.
That's awesome.
One of my daughters is. We watch a lot of Greatest Showman. She loves musicals. She's like wants to play. So yeah.
I'm ready for a new musical to come out. I know all the words. I have the soundtracks. We have the movies. Music dances. The one good thing about it though is my 1-year-old. You put that movie on, she could be in the middle of screaming, crying. You put it on, she just sits down and life is okay. And so for the next 1 hour and 42 minutes, you can get stuff done.
All right, so for the record, it's not Hero Quest. As I said before, I'm still working on that. That's a long con right there.
Chat's gonna keep saying things, and then Justin's gonna just keep saying no to him, and then we'll finally figure out what it is. There'll only be one game left. Awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
It's that Pacific Northwest game, service station game.
Ah, yes.
Yes. How did you know I would love that so much? I'm real excited about getting a copy. No,
it was only available at 4 McDonald's from the year 1980 to 1981.
But awesome. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Justin. We stream these Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time at youtube.com/Epic Gaming Night. If anybody wants to know where to find you or check out more of Restoration Games, where can they hit that up?
So restorationgames.com is the website. I'm super active on Twitter, at Restoration Game. Leave off the extra S because of, Twitter name count. And not so much on Facebook. I try. I'm really bad at Facebook. I dabble in the Instagram, but, mostly Twitter. And I love interactive going on Twitter. So if you have a question or want to hit me up or ask me something, Twitter. Far and away.
All right, so I'm going to tweet you. Justin, what was that game you couldn't tell us?
Yes, you do that. You should CC Rob and see what he's willing to tell
And
you.
it'll be like, you have been blocked by Restoration Games. What? No, I'm just kidding. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us in chat. We want to say a special thank you to all of our patrons on Patreon. If you want to help support Epic Gaming Night, make sure to check us out at patreon.com/Epic Gaming Night. Also, make sure to hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at Epic Gaming Night. We're posting things we're excited about in games, what games we're playing, and a bunch of different stuff like that. I also do want to make an announcement about Recon. There's a convention this weekend. If you're in the North Carolina area, make sure to check it out. We're going to have tons of play-to-win games we're giving away. Me and Rob are coming. I think Matt might show up. Matt, do you think you're coming this weekend?
I'll probably be there for a bit.
Matt will be there for a bit, so make sure you're there while Matt's there. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Bring him cheese and still take awkward pictures of Roy.
Awesome. And you can find a lot of that stuff on our Facebook page and Instagram. I've been posting things sharing about that convention as well. And awesome. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.
Yeah.
Thanks, Justin, again.
Thank you. Adios.
Bye.
We appreciate you, man.